As we were saying, it's not a book generally concerned with evidences, concerned with very direct advice, and that's why the book is very short. So many of the headings are the same headings in At-Targhib wa Tarhib. Many of the ideas are going to be very familiar to you, but instead of a hadith, it's a very practical direct advice. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We'll read his introduction first, the reason he wrote. And I won't necessarily read every Arabic, just for the sake of time. We'll read this. Alhamdulillah بالوجه الكريم والفضل العظيم والمن القديم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد خاتم النبيين وآله أجمعين. أما بعد قد سألني بعض إخواني الصالحين أن أكتب لهم وصية فامتنعت من ذلك علمي أني غير مستوصٍ بنفسي ولا عامل بما ينبغي. So after praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending salutations on the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says some of his righteous brothers have asked him to write some advice, and at first he refused them because he says he doesn't act upon all of it. He doesn't work. There's no amal, and there's something we've talked about, doing specific actions, or not doing specific actions, but still advising people to do it. So there's a general principle to, based upon many hadith, to not advise people to do something yourself out of fear of hypocrisy. So, in fact, this sentence you can find in many similar books regarding advice by the scholars. They'll all say the same thing, that they were afraid to be hypocrites because they don't act upon certain things, certain times. And obviously, everyone makes mistakes. People think that just because you wrote, 1 million books in Islamic sciences, you don't make mistakes. But obviously, Ibn Qudama, rahimahullah, is a human just like everyone else, and so he was afraid. But then he says, ثم بدا لي أن أجيبه رجاء ثواب قضاء حاجة الأخ المسلم. Says I was guided to actually answer this call to fulfill the needs of the Muslims. So a lot of Muslims, they don't have the ability to go through the books of Ahadith and the Quran and to derive certain lessons and morals by themselves. And so some people, when they ask him this, it's their only source of guidance. He says, I will fulfill the needs of the Muslims by doing this. That certain laymen, certain people who are, maybe they can't even read as a whole, let alone understand the text. They would need just some general specific advice, just direct, practical advice on how to live their lives as Muslims. وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَإِلَيْهِ أُنِيبُ. So the first section, and there's 3 sections in the book, المبادرة إلى العمل, so encouragement of action. فأقول حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل الدنيا فرصة فاغتنموها. He says this dunya is an opportunity, so seek its benefits. He says اعلم رحمك الله أن هذه الدنيا مزرعة الآخرة. Know, may Allah have mercy on you, that this dunya are the fields in which the akhirah are sowed, meaning everything you plant here you will gain in the akhirah. ومتجر أرباحها, and it's the store of its profits. وموضع تحصيل الزاد منها والبضائع الرابحة, and it is the place of seeking supplies for it. وفاز المتقون وأفلح الصادقون وربح العاملون وخسر المبطلون. So the muttaqin, the people who have piety, they have won in this dunya. And the people who have lost, meaning the people who have rejected belief or let their desires control their lives, they also have lost in this dunya. So he's gonna repeat this concept multiple times through their various means, but the general idea to get is that every single thing you can gain in this dunya, obviously you will get in the akhirah. On the opposite side, every single thing you can possibly gain in the akhirah, you can only get in this dunya. Meaning you're only in this dunya once. He's saying it's the field in which you plant the gains of the akhirah. It's the market in which you gain its profits, and it is the shop in which you get its, meaning every single supply you will have in the akhirah, Every single prophet you have there, every people, everyone likes to dream about rivers in Jannah. Every single thing you gain there can only be acquired in this dunya. And that is the meaning of the heading of the chapter, that this dunya is an opportunity, so seek benefit from it. But this opportunity only comes once. And he will repeat some hadith or verses some quotes from the tabi'een and some scholars, all repeating the same idea. They all have a little twist in them. So he mentions the verse by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وهم يصطرخون فيها ربنا أخرجنا نعمل صالحا غير الذي كنا نعمل. So the people who are in the grave and they're suffering the punishment of the grave, they're saying, may Allah let us out of here so we can do good deeds instead of the deeds that we used to do. Meaning once they are in the grave, once they're in Dar al-Haq, they're no longer in this dunya, they're in the place of truth where they know the world for what it is, and they know the akhirah for what it is and what they have in it. They will realize how much of an opportunity they lost. And they will realize how much of a loss they have acquired through either their lack of belief or their lack of action or their hypocrisy and so on and so forth. And he mentions a saying by Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. He says, إن أرواح الشهداء كطير خضر تسرح في الجنة حيث شاءت ثم تأويل إلى قناديل معلقة بالعرش فبينهما هم كذلك أطلع عليهم ربك اطلاعا فقال يا عبادي سلوني ما شئتم فقالوا يا ربنا نسألك أن ترد أرواحنا في أجسادنا ثم تردنا إلى الدنيا فنقتل فيك مرة أخرى فلما رأى أنهم لا يسألون إلا ذلك تركوا. Ibn Mas'ud narrates that the souls of the martyrs, the shuhada, and as you know from various hadith and various verses, that those who die in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are alive in ways we cannot feel. Meaning they're not like regular people where they live the life of the grave and then they go to Jannah or Jahannam in the Akhirah. But rather the benefits they have gained in this dunya, they feel of Jannah from the moment that they die. So Ibn Mas'ud narrates that the souls of the shuhada are like birds flying in Jannah. And so when they meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he asks them, he tells them, ask me something so I can increase your benefit. So the shuhada replied to him, so, oh Allah, make us alive again so we can die in your way again, so we can become shuhada again. Once they have experienced the actual benefit of being a shaheed, once they have experienced the truth of the akhirah and know what the position they have in it, they say, oh Allah, take us back so we can do it again, so we can increase in our benefit. And the shaheed is already one of the highest positions you can have in Jannah. After the prophets and the awliya and the siddiqeen, one of the highest positions is the position of shaheed. It's not as if they're the lowest level of Jannah and they barely have anything. They're already in the highest position, and still after they realize what an opportunity the dunya was, they want to go back. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, or Ibn Mas'ud says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not, after he sees that this is the only thing they ask for, he doesn't answer, because obviously this is not something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does where he lets people go back to life, because this is one of the rules he has made for the dunya. But the point is that they don't ask anything else, because once you have experienced the truth, you will realize that there's nothing else worth asking for. Ibn Qudama continues, وَعْلَمْ يَا أَخِي رَحِمَكَ اللَّهُ أَنَّ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى قَدْ عَلِمَ أَنَّهُمْ يَسْأَلُونَ ذَلِكَ وَأَنَّهُمْ لَا يَرُدُّونَ إِلَى الدُّنْيَا وَإِنَّمَا أَرَادَ إعْلَامَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ الَّذِينَ الدُّنْيَا أَنَّ أُمْنِيَاتِهِمْ فِي الْجَنَّةِ الْقَتْلُ فِي سَبِيلِهِ لِيُرْغِبَهُم فِي ذَلِكَ. So we mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't grant their request to go back to the dunya. So Ibn Mas'ud or Ibn Qudama says that the reason Allah is asking and telling and allowing this narration to continue in the Muslims is to tell the Muslims what they want. Because right now we haven't experienced the akhirah. We haven't experienced what we will have in the grave and after that, whether it will be punished or not punished. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a glimpse of the unseen to tell us what we ought to want, that we ought to be in the ranks of the shuhada and the siddiqeen. Again, to realize what the opportunity we have in this dunya is. وقال إبراهيم التيمي رحمه الله مثلت نفسي في الجنة آكل من ثمارها وأعانق أبكارها وأتمتع بنعيمها فقلت لنفسي يا نفس أي شيء تتمنين. So Ibrahim al-Taymi was a tabi'i. Again, the tabi'in are the generation after the Sahaba. He says, I pretended that I was in Jannah, that I was eating its fruits and enjoying what there is to enjoy in it. And so I imagine in that position, what would I ask myself? قلت أرد إلى الدنيا فأزداد من العمل الذي نلت به هذا. It says, logically, I would want to go back to the dunya so I can increase the work that I have done that has gotten me here in the first place. This is a form of reflection over what we've just mentioned from the verses and the hadith that speak about this. This is the practical application. To imagine yourself in the akhirah, imagine what you're going to have, and ask yourself, what are you going to want then? The answer is going to be, you're going to want to come back to the dunya to increase what you did that got you there in the first place. And so the examples continue. Ibn Qudama mentions that some of the Salaf used to dig themselves graves and lie in them and pretend that they are dead, basically. And it's death meditation. And they would ask themselves, what would you wish? You're in the grave. Pretend right now you're in the grave. And ask yourself, what would you want? And so they would want to go back to the dunya to increase what they have done. Because once you're in the grave and you pretend that you are dead and you realize that, pretend that your actions have been cut off. Everything that you have done, that's what's there for you. And there's nothing else. Ask yourself, is that enough? And if you're here for the khutbah by Ustaz Sayyid Hassan, you would realize that one of the things he said, which is again on the same topic, that someone who thinks that, the Ramadan that passed last year, that they did everything they could, that there's no way they could have been closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then this is delusion. Same thing for the dunya in general. Any year that passes by, and you think that there's nothing more that I could have done, then there's something wrong with you. To be blunt, obviously. Anyone who thinks that there's no way they can increase their actions. And here we're reading examples from the Salaf, Ibrahim al-Taymi and others. They weren't like us. They used to read the Quran every week. We're doing a khatam in Ramadan once the entire month, and some people are proud of themselves. People used to do it every week. And some of the tabi'een, during the Ashr al-Akhir, during the last 10 nights, they'd read it once a night. The entire Quran in one night. So anyone who thinks that the state that we are in today, the average Muslim, that there's nothing more they could have done, they pray all their nawafil prayers, and they give zakah, they give sadaqah every year, and then that's it. They've reached the highest station they can with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they're delusional. There's always something else you can do. And the people that pretend they are dead, they pretend they are in the grave, from the tabi'een, who are already much higher rank, in a much higher rank than us, still they used to say that we should have been doing more. We should have done more before we died. Obviously they haven't died. But this is one of the and this isn't ibadah. This isn't something that is open for bid'ah or not bid'ah. This isn't something that they're doing as ibadah. It's something that they're doing for personal reflection. Obviously, there's no hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ says to lie in a grave and pretend you are dead. This is an application of a general rule, which is to meditate death. This is the way that worked for them. And there's other ways that work for other people. And one of this tradition specifically of lying in the grave is carried on by some followers of the Naqshbandi Tariqah, specifically in Khurasan, in which they lie in the grave and ask themselves what's going to happen to the people around them, to their children, to their business, to their friends. Are they all just going to stop functioning because you're not there anymore? Or is everything going to continue as if you were never there? It's important to meditate death and realize the world doesn't revolve around you. And this helps in doing actions. Realizing that nobody depends on you, that this dunya depends on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. It's going to make you realize that you also depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, and it's going to increase your actions. So Ibn Qudama continues, واعلم رحمك الله أن أهل القبور أمنية أحدهم أن يسبح تسبيحة تزيد في حسناته أو بقدر على توب أو يقدر على توبة من بعض سيئاته أو ركعة ترفع في درجاته. So he mentions that the wish of the people of the grave, the people in the grave, is that they are alive just to do one tasbihah, or make tawbah for one sin they committed, or to perform one rak'ah. And they realize how much of an opportunity they have lost in the dunya. Even just the tiniest action, one form of dhikr, one rak'ah, one tawbah from a specific sin. That's their greatest desire. Just to come back and do that one thing. وقد روينا أن رجلا ركع ركعتين إلى جانب قبر ثم اتكأ عليه. And we narrate, he doesn't mention who, again, I mentioned in the beginning that he's not specific about the evidences, the specific names, where he got the narration. He just says, we have narrated that a man did 2 rak'ahs beside a grave. ثم اتكأ عليه فأخفى فرأى صاحب القبر في المنام يقول تنحى عني قد أذيتني. And then after performing those 2 rak'ahs beside the grave, he fell asleep where he was. And in his vision, he saw the person of the grave, the person that was buried beside him. He says, get away from me, you have hurt me. What has he done? He doesn't even know who this person is. He hasn't cursed him, he hasn't, desecrated his grave. He says, these 2 rak'ahs you have prayed beside my grave, it is my greatest desire to come back to life just to pray those 2 rak'ahs. He says, you have hurt me, get away. That's how much he is bothered. It's not just a passing request or just a casual want. It's his greatest desire to just come back to life and do those 2 rak'ahs. He says, I can't look at you. Go away. Go do your rak'ahs somewhere else. You're torturing me, knowing that I can't come back and do what you did. Ibn Qudama continues, وَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ مُدَّةَ حَيَاتِكَ مَحْدُودَةٌ وَأَنْفَاسِكَ مَعْدُودَةٌ فَكُلُّ نَفَسٍ يَنْقُصُ بِهَا جُزْءٌ مِنْكَ وَالْعُمْرُ كُلُّهُ قَصِيرٌ وَالْبَاقِي مِنْهُ هُوَ الْيَسِيرُ وكل جزء منه جوهرة نفيسة لا عد لها ولا خلف منها فإن بهذه الحياة اليسيرة خلود الأبد في النعيم أو العذاب الأليم. He says, know that your life is limited, and so are your breaths. For every breath you take, a part of you has died. Meaning what? Meaning that our lives are, in relativity to time, a set amount. That every second that passes by, part of you dies. And I think it's Hassan al-Basri, one of the tabi'in, who said something very similar. He says that, no, son of Adam, you are a set of days. Every single time a day ends, a part of you has died. Consider your life to be, what's the average life expectancy? I don't know, 200,000 days, for the sake of argument. Know that this is set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's predestination. That the amount of years you live, the amount of days you live, the amount of breaths you take is all limited. Every single time one of them ends, a part of you has died. Similarly, every single time a second ends and you haven't done a ibadah in it, you've lost a great opportunity. Your opportunities at the end of the day, they're numbered. Let's say you do dhikr every single second of your life. You have a maximum ability to do, for example, 1 million adhkar in your life. Every single day that passes by, 1,000 missed opportunities, 1,000 missed adhkar, 100 missed sadaqat, 20 missed nawafil, 3 ajza of the Quran you could have read that are missed. All of that is from your limited opportunity. When the day ends, that's it. That opportunity doesn't come back. And the ultimate culmination is when you die in the end, and no opportunity comes back. Not a single opportunity to do a single rak'ah, a single tasbihah, a single la ilaha illallah comes back. Every single time, every single second you waste, you're dying either way. Every single second you waste, at least you could die and have done something. You could have used your opportunities. Don't let this day pass before doing what you can. Don't let your opportunities pass by without taking them. Now knowing that they're limited. وإذا عدلت في هذه الحياة بخلود الأبد علمت أن كل نفس يعدل أكثر من ألف عام في نعيم لا حصر له ولا خلاف أو خلاف ذلك وما كان هكذا فلا قيمة له. He says to his students, equate your dunya with the dunya of the akhirah, which you know goes on for eternity. Meaning that every breath you take, he said every breath is an opportunity. Every breath is an opportunity for a dhikr or istighfar or anything else. Every breath you take is the equivalent of 1,000 years in na'im, in al-Jannah, for example, in a general sense. It says, when you know this, you'll know that your time here is absolutely worthless. He's going to get into a better example later when she goes into, I'll come back to it, but the point is that every single second you take here, don't think that I'll do what I can, I'll read Quran for an hour, and then that's it, I'll get tired. Sure, you'll get tired, sure, you'll get fatigued, sure, maybe you'll miss an opportunity to watch an episode of TV or hang out with your friends or whatever you enjoy doing for leisure time. That's not saying don't do leisure, just recognize at least that every single second you waste because you're tired, you could have gained 1,000 years of na'im instead of it. And if you're already in the na'im, you could have gained 1,000 palaces. We mentioned some adhkar in the previous halaqat. Very simple adhkar, the reward of which is unproportional to the amount of effort you take. Saying subhanallah bihamdik, subhanallah al-azim. The amount of reward is unbelievable, given that it just takes 2 seconds to say that. Similarly, the entire dunya is equal to this. Every single second you can gain immense opportunity in the akhirah. It's not worth wasting. And so the story which he was going to mention, he mentions a lengthy metaphor, or I don't know what the correct English rhetorical device is, but he says the people of this dunya are like a people on a ship. The wind takes them to an island. This island has many precious jewels in it. So he mentions all the emeralds, the rubies, the topaz, the pearls. He says ما دون ذلك إلا العقيق والشح ثم بعد ذلك زلف وحجارة لا قيمة لها. And everything else is valueless. Apart from these emeralds and these rubies, there's valueless rocks, just pebbles and stones and sandstone, those things. وفي الجزيرة حمى الملك حد لها حدودا وأحاط عليها حائطا فيها خزائن الملك وإماء وولدان. And in this island, there is a king who has a palace, and in this palace, he has many pleasures, many things to enjoy. And so the people of the ship go down to the island, and it is told to them, you'll remain here for 2 or 3 days. And so he divides all humanity into 3 categories. It says, the first one, the hazimun, the people who take the opportunity. They rush to collect every single emerald and ruby that they can. And when they get tired, they remember that they're only here for 2 or 3 days, and that this fatigue eventually will go away when this entire ordeal is over. The second category are people who took a few emeralds, a few precious stones, and then they fell asleep. Like, that's enough. I have what I need. And then the third group are the people who don't collect the emeralds or the precious stones at all. And from them are 3 categories. The first one are people who spend their time building homes. Like, let's build some shelter. Let's get a food source. Let's sustain ourselves on this island, and then we'll do something else. Second one is a group who not only did not collect the precious stones, they spent their time. They actually exerted effort in collecting the valueless things. And so if the emeralds and the rubies are the hasanat, the valueless things are the sayyat. Not only are some people not using this opportunity to gain good deeds of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they spend their entire time collecting things which are going to harm them. Heavy rocks which are going to be a burden when they go back on the ship. And so he mentions, maybe it's not necessary to go into every category. The metaphor does go on very long. But the point is, this third category, the people who do not take the opportunity, people who do not use their chances, these 2 or 3 days to collect some precious stones before they go back on the ship, there's many ways you cannot do this. You can be idle. You can collect valueless things. You can spend your time entertaining yourself. He mentions all these different categories. And then he mentions another category, the people who, we mentioned there's a king on the island with a palace. Instead of collecting the jewels, they go into the palace of the king and they enjoy themselves there. Meaning referencing the people in the dunya who spend their time getting close to the positions of power, whether wealth or authority, etc., instead of gaining supplies for the akhirah, for when they go back on the ship. And so, very obviously, when the ship comes back in 3 days, the people who spent their time not doing anything valuable, not collecting anything that's going to benefit them when they go back to where they came from, not collecting these jewels, anyone else is going to feel immense regret. Not only the people who did not do anything, even the people who did a little. The people who, imagine going to an island of gold, just infinite gold. And you're there for 3 days and all you take is 5 coins. Yeah, you didn't do anything bad. You're not collecting the valueless sandstone, the burdens like other people. But still, you're going to feel immense regret. But this is all you could take. When the amount you could have possibly taken, the size of the opportunity was much larger than what you took. انظر رحمك الله إلى تفاوت ما بين المنزلتين ما حصل من الفرق بين الفريقين والصبر في تلك المدة اليسيرة التي أقاموا في تلك الجزيرة. So look at the end when they go back to where they came from, how grand the difference is between these two people, these two camps or these two groups, and how much they will realize that the fatigue they felt on that island was nothing in the grand scheme of things. Yes, they got tired. At the end of the day, they sucked it up and realized it's okay, just for a while. people read these, especially students of knowledge, when they read these students of the people before them, they read the stories like I just mentioned, that, the Tabi'in used to read the Quran once in the entire night, the entire Quran. Or they read other things, like Al-Bukhari traveling 20 years just to write a book, eating the trees off of leaves just to survive. You think that these people reached a great station in Islam because they didn't feel tired? You think Al-Shafi'i, you think Imam Ahmad, you think Al-Bukhari, you think Imam Ghazali, you think Ibn Taymiyyah, you think they didn't feel tired? Every single one of them felt fatigue. Every single one of them was all tired, just like us. The difference between us and them is that they fought it. They realized that this is temporary. Yes, I'm gonna get tired. Yes, it's gonna be painful. Yes, I'm not living in the best of manners. I'm not that rich. I could spend my time gaining money. I could spend my time doing whatever, trying to get in a position of power. But they realize it doesn't matter. This is just for a while. Nuh alayhi salam, how many years did he live? 950. The Prophet ﷺ narrates from him that at the end of his life, the people asked him, how was your life? He said, it's as if I've walked through this door and left. 950 years. It's nothing. When you compare it to literal eternity. Nuh alayhi salam was, some people don't want to be tired for 60 or 70 years. Prophet ﷺ says the ages of my ummah are 60 to 70 years. Nuh alayhi salam was tired for 950 years. Every single day doing da'wah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You think he didn't get tired? So he says, Ibn Qudama, look at the patience they had for this short amount that they were on the island, and how great of a reward they had in the end. فهذا تقريب مثال الدنيا وهو عمل فيها بالطاعة ومن استوعبها بالتفريط والإضاعة. This is the likeness of this dunya and the likeness of the people who fill it with ibadat, with worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and obeying Him, and the people who lose it, doing nothing. فاجتهد رحمك الله في الكون من الفرقة الأولى الذين استوعبوا الساعة بالطاعات. Have effort, put effort. He's speaking to the people he's writing this to. Have effort in being from the people of the first group. Do your best to be in this first group, the people who fight off being tired, who fight off fatigue, who fight off poverty, because they know that they are here for a temporary time. والزم قلبك الفكرة في نعم الله لتشكرها وفي ذنوبك لتستغفرها وتفريطك لتندم وفي مخلوقات الله وحكمه لتعرف عظمته وحكمته وفيما بين يديك لتستعد لها وفي شيء. والزم لسانك ذكر الله تعالى ودعاءه واستغفاره. Says maintain your tongue in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and making dua to Him and istighfar and the reading of Quran, or gaining knowledge, or teaching knowledge, or enjoining what is good and forbidding what is evil, or fixing relations between people. This could be family, this could be friends, anything. واشغل جوارحك بالطاعات, and exert your limbs into obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and let the most important of these obeyings be in the fara'id, in the things that are obligatory. ثم ما يتعدى نفعه إلى الخلق وأفضل ذلك ما نفعهم في دينهم وتعليمهم الدين وهدايتهم إلى الصراط المستقيم. It says, after this, the obligatory, the best things to do is to guide people to the straight path. And that is the end of the first section. Any questions? Yes.
You mentioned how the person who thinks that they've done all the kind of belief.
Yes.
All of your things about how you mentioned. There's some notion this problem where it's something like, if you were to tell them they were going to die tomorrow, they would not only be with them. They reached the maximum they could do. How do you reconcile?
They reached the maximum they were doing, meaning they were already putting their most effort in. They didn't fast Ramadan and then that's it. I did enough fasting Ramadan. Every single day that was going by, They were doing, read the biographies of the Sahaba. Every single day they were doing nothing but praying and doing dhikr. They were literally filling every moment. They weren't losing any opportunity. They were doing qiyam al-layl. They were doing all their nawafil. They were doing jihad fi sabilillah. Every single opportunity that came by, they took it. They didn't, they didn't capitalize on 90% of them and then say, we'll rest for the last 10%. So if you want to reach that station where there's nothing more we could have done, then do what the Sahaba did. But nobody is, when I mentioned that saying, it's because none of us are in the station of Sahaba right now. None of us are capitalizing on every single opportunity we have. Right? Anything else? No? Okay, before we end, the people who want to gain the ijazah, I do need to maintain that you were here for every single session. So someone has a paper, could pass by the names, write them down. Abshir, do you have Ahmed, MSA members? Guys? Okay, guys will pass around a paper. If you're interested in the ijazah, just write down your name. That's it. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. What? Abshir is requesting that you help with the details.